Oh my gosh, why did I do this? I've been watching too many iPad reviews. What I wanted to know is, why do some people love their iPads and why do some people hate the iPad? And I learned a lot. So to get this video going, I need some buckets. I'm gonna be putting people in these buckets. Most of these videos fit into one of three categories. First, the reviewer who is trying out the iPad Pro, your more tech-centric reviewer.
Kinda doesn't matter how powerful they make the iPad. It's still an iPad.
Second is the person who is using the iPad Pro as their daily companion device to what they do all the time. I kind of half fit in this bucket too. These people maybe have a YouTube channel, but reviewing tech isn't their primary thing. And third, there are the people who are using the iPad Pro as their main device. Basically, this is a laptop or a computer replacement.
Especially since I use my iPad for everything. And by everything, I mean all work and all play.
As I was starting this process, I thought, cool, I'll just watch every single iPad Pro review that I can find on YouTube since the release of the M5 iPad Pro back in October.
This iPad hit different.
Then I report back to you guys, tell you what I found, but that plan fell apart pretty quickly. What was really easy to find are people who fit into bucket one.
If I'm looking at them individually, I feel like they've been amazing displays since 2018.
But that isn't exactly what I was looking for. I've seen a lot of those videos already. These were videos that did a good job of going over the specs and talking about the iPad Pro's best features.
It is on par, if not better, than any display that we have ever touched before.
But to get different viewpoints, I needed to widen my net beyond just reviews into videos of people not just reviewing the iPads, but talking about how they use their iPads for all sorts of different things. I think this is just my theory here that most people who look at an iPad and think, I kind of want that, already have an idea in mind for how they're gonna use it. For example, I look at the iPad and I think, I want to draw on this thing. Someone else might look at it and say, I want to take notes on it. Somebody else might look at it and say, I'm a student. I do a lot of long form math problems. I want to use the iPad for that. And I think the people who fit in bucket one were often people who were trying to just think of a way to use the iPad for a week or so while they were reviewing it. So I started searching and binging main devices, the people who are using their iPad Pro as their main computer.
Can you actually replace your laptop with an iPad Pro?
And these were my favorite videos to watch because some people were able to do it, a lot more tried, and I loved these little peeks into how everybody was using their iPad.
95% of this video will be helpful for anyone considering the 11-inch model as well, since the only major difference between the two is the screen size.
I thought the same thing. In fact, I've been saying that exact same thing in my iPad reviews for years, but what I've learned is that I was kind of wrong. Even though there's only 2 inches of difference in the size of those iPads, those 2 inches dramatically affect the way that people use their iPads. And people who have tried both sizes, sometimes at the same time, had vastly different experiences.
But they're both iPads, right? Wrong. Living with them made it clear to me that the 11-inch feels like a completely different product category.
2 things kept coming up over and over again. One was iPad OS 26's new Windows features, and the second thing is the keyboard size. The iPad has been able to put 2 apps on the screen for a long time now, but the latest changes in iPad OS let you take a full screen app, drag up from the corner, turn it into a window like on a Mac or a Windows computer, and you could see multiple apps and folders at once. It's kind of handy. It's just easier to like drag files around and see a lot of stuff at once. And when you're in that mode, it gives your iPad a much more laptop-like feel. And most of the small laptops out there these days are 13 inches. Reason why? An 11-inch laptop is really small. It's probably too small.
But I think if you're going to be using this as kind of like a computer or a laptop replacement, going up to that bigger 13-inch size really makes a difference, especially when you're doing things like video editing or graphic design.
While using the 11-inch for reading or playing games that have on-screen controls, it was just more manageable. And then there's the issue with the keyboard. Universally, people seem to feel that the Magic Keyboard cover is just a little too cramped when you're dealing with that 11-inch version, but it was fine when they were typing a lot on the 13.
It's with this 11-inch model specifically where I did have a hard time with a keyboard.
And some reviewers even mentioned how the 11-inch display was just a little too small. They wanted it at a slightly different angle when they were looking down at it on their desk.
I was honestly looking forward to being able to push this back further than I can. I wanted to unlock a new angle, and I did, and you can lean it further forward than you can with the old one, but I'm not using my iPad like like this.
Now when Tom over at Byte Review decided to switch from the 13 over to the smaller 11, he did it because he found himself using it more as a tablet than a laptop.
And this time round as well, I didn't even buy a keyboard because it doesn't really fit into my use case anymore. So I just picked up the Folio case and the Apple Pencil Pro.
So when you're looking at the iPad and you're trying to decide on the size, I think the big question to ask yourself is, do you want a tablet that can sometimes be a laptop, or do you want a laptop that can sometimes be a tablet? I really like the new windowed mode in iOS 26, but since I'm in the bucket number 1, I have used it kind of sparingly, basically to pull open a web browser as a reference while I'm drawing on the other side of the screen, or to go split screen when I'm writing up a script for video like this one, where one side I'll have what I'm researching, on the other side I'll have my script as I'm writing it. But if I'm being honest with myself, that's not that different than how I was using it before. But what I did find interesting is how many people were attaching their iPad to an external monitor and using it that way. Dual screening is super duper handy, and it solves a lot of the problems of the cramped screen feel on a smaller iPad. However, it introduces extra steps that you don't find on like Windows or Mac.
So if I'm watching a YouTube video over here, but I want to put it aside so I can use this screen to answer some emails, but keep the video going, it won't drag off this screen and onto this screen. It'll just disappear.
Of course, I use my iPad for drawing, and if that's something you're interested in, you should definitely check out my courses over at bradsartschool.com. If you're just learning to draw, there's my Learn to Draw in 60 Days course. Or if you're already drawing traditionally and want to learn more about the digital art tools out there, there's Intro to Digital Art. I'll leave a link down below in the description. Okay, so I was wrong about the size. I kind of want to win. So what's something that I was right about or kind of had a hunch about in my review? That's easy. People don't know what to do with all of this power.
Because these things are so powerful, you'd really be having to push these to recognize it.
Most of the reviews I was watching were either for the M4 iPad Pro or the M5 iPad Pro. Incredibly powerful processors running on an iPad that doesn't really have a lot of software taking advantage of it.
Is a beast, but to be honest, so was the M2.
Now, people who fit into bucket 3 are most likely to appreciate those M4 or M5 processors. After watching a lot of reviews, there's really only 2 activities that push these things. Number 1 is gaming.
I didn't think I would ever say this, but the iPad Pro is amazing for gaming.
And when I say gaming, I think it's important to think about the context of the kind of games you're able to play on an iPad. Right before I was ready to record this script, Digital Foundry launched their own video where they were like specking out the iPad, the M5 iPad Pro, talking about what it was like to play games on. They tested games like Resident Evil, Assassin's Creed Mirage, games that are used to running on a modern day console or a computer.
I opted for the 13-inch version, so it actually was a completely new and honestly pretty cool gaming experience.
Even though we talk about this M5 processor is so amazingly powerful, it's still not anywhere near a PC with a discrete GPU. Many of these games were rendering at a lower resolution, they were kind of blurry, things like that, all of that just to get like a decent frame rate. 30 frames. Some of the games went up to like 60 frames on the M5, but we're not talking about anything crazy. Now, the main thing that people are doing with these iPads in terms of like power consumption, actually taking advantage of the processors that they have, are making videos. At least that's what people who make YouTube videos are doing with their iPads.
I edited one of my friend's podcasts here using multicam on Final Cut Pro, and the timeline, as you can see, is smooth with no lags or stutters.
And for a lot of folks, Final Cut Pro does the trick, and it does everything they need. For other folks, they've tried to make the switch over, but it didn't quite cut it.
Yeah, Final Cut on the iPad is awesome, but Final Cut on the Mac is so much better.
So video editing, a little bit hit or miss. It depends on what you need it to do.
But the software holds them back from fully utilizing the insane power that they have.
Then there are artists. Oh, artists, I love you guys. This is my niche. This is what I use my iPad for, and artists' iPad reviews are like an entire genre on YouTube.
Better roll detection, and that cool hover preview function.
I wouldn't say the iPad has become like the de facto way to draw, not entirely, because a lot of companies are still tied to like Photoshop and the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite and that sort of thing. So a lot of people are still drawing on computers, but people who are illustrators who don't need to use those have migrated to the iPad. A lot of hobbyists have migrated to the iPad. In fact, the entry-level iPad is one of the most popular devices for people who are just getting into art. It's just that perfect fit between quality and affordability. And in more recent years, it's been interesting to see the iPad starting to make more inroads into the animation industry as well. And in the next couple of years, we're going to see more and more 3D apps coming to the iPad. A little over a year ago, we saw ZBrush come to the iPad. Now we're going to see Blender coming to the iPad probably in the next year or so, or at least some variation of Blender. There's a lot of exciting things happening that will start to push that M5 processor and whatever processors they release in the future. So this was an interesting experience. I'm going to link all of those iPad reviews down below in the description. So if you want to watch those, they're there. But what do you think? What kind of things do you use your iPad for that you don't see people talking about a lot in many of these reviews? I would love to hear it down below in the comments. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.